This is Capsule on liveinlimbo.com. My name is Andreas Babiolakis, and this is an adventure to music, film, and pop culture. Sean Chin cannot be with me this week as he is touring Europe, but instead I've got a very special guest. This is Jason Leung. How's it going?
Good, man. How's it going?
Pretty good, thank you. Now, tell everybody why you're such an important guest, because you have some things up your sleeve that they interest me like highly. So, especially in regards to CMW, Canada Music Week. So, go for it.
Yeah, well, listen, music is my thing. I've loved it for all my life. I guess a lot of people can say that too. But I'm, beginning in the industry. I'm starting to work around some soundboards, being a sound engineer at a few places. I volunteered during CMW, which was fantastic. I was a stage manager there, so I got like a nice inside scoop talking to bands, talking to agents and whatnot, and that was pretty cool. And then I have my own blog as well about new music. It's not necessarily just in Toronto, but a lot of any new music that I want to share with people. It's never going to be a negative thing. It's always music I like, and whatever I'm going in, whatever I'm feeling at the time. Once I listen to it and I talk about it, I hope you guys like it too. But yeah, no, me and Andreas we went to school. We have a history before, and now that we kind of like get back together as friends because of music, that's why he has me on. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, music's a very good thing. We've had um, people from our past before, like we talked about Lauren Chan and Box Tiger making it, opening for Foster the People, opening for Brody Dahl, and now opening for bands like Modest Mouse, which they're doing tomorrow. So it's fantastic, this kind of industry, especially because it's the industry that's gotten me to meet people from my past the most and meet them in such an engaging light with of course music that we like, and we're gonna get into that with this episode just in a second. But I'm really interested about CMW, as I said. What kind of bands were you working with?
You know what? It was interesting because a few days there were. I looking at the list of it, I had no idea who anybody was, which was better to be honest because I had nothing to expect and everything was kind of a surprise. The first day was a little slow. The bands are give or take, but then it's just it progressed more and more and more and more. One of the days actually, one of the agents for arts and crafts, that's the label that signed Feist and what's the other one? Broken Social Scene. They were the
Right.
ones who actually headlined that show. So it wasn't actually CMW. We kind of just helped out. So a whole bunch of people were there. Broken Social Scene was there. Feist was playing there, and it was incredible. And I got to meet a lot of people from Montreal, some people from Germany, Ireland, Australia, all these different people, all these fantastic musicians. And yeah, like it was really good. It just kept on progressing day in and day out.
That's incredible. They got a chance to do this, and how, if you're able to divulge this information, how exactly did you even get a chance to volunteer to do this? Were they looking for people, or were you looking for them?
Well, I guess a little bit of both. I went to school at Recording Arts Canada, which is in Toronto, and right after I graduated, I just said, screw it, I'm gonna volunteer to whatever I can. So I signed up to NXNE, I signed up to Field Trip, I signed up to CMW. CMW messaged me first. He says, "Hey, I want you to come by to see if you can be a stage manager," and I was like, "Hell yeah, let's do it." And then I've never done it before, so it was kind of like learn from start. And then I just had to basically keep contact with everybody, make sure everyone knows their schedule, when they're on, when they load in, when they load out. And once they're on stage, you have to, give them the time frame. Like once 40 minutes is up, you got to get them out and you have to load the other band up. So it's kind of like an inside scoop into it.
Absolutely. Now, because you have this kind of a background, when it comes to your criticisms or opinions on music, you have a bit of a different taste than a lot of people that I would have talked to, because we hear things from melody, from songwriting, from how notes are, this and that, but you have a different aspect which a lot of people don't have, and that's the actual production and the quality of the sound as well. Going to study this kind of thing, did it change a lot of music for you where you said, oh, actually, this doesn't sound that good anymore now that I know what good mixing is? Or did it affect a lot of music for you? Or,
Definitely, definitely. I mean, before I went to school, I already had, I would say I had a keen ear in listening to different instruments at a certain time. I would kind of break down, this drum beat or this bass line or this guitar riff or whatnot. But then after going to school, you kind of learn the production side, and that's where you start to hint, oh, maybe they shouldn't have used this verse, or you should, change this around. And especially during the recording process, what EQs they use, what kind of effects they're using. Are they using, real instruments? Are they using a program like Reason or something like that? A lot of the times I'm listening to music, I'm like, that's not a real instrument. You can totally use a real hi-hat for that. And,
yeah.
it's stuff like that. It definitely changes your perspective. I kind of ruin music a lot to some people because they would love a song and be like, yeah, but that's not real. You know?
Yeah, I
But
understand. It's the same thing with movies and myself because I studied film and I would look at a lot of movies that I loved and I would say, well, this is just appalling because the story is just terrible and look at this editing. It's just so hastily put together and I understand exactly how it is, but at the same time, it's good because you get this refined taste now. So you probably, well, of course, because it's your opinion now, so you're going to agree with it, but
mhm.
you probably feel a lot better about your actual tastes and your preferences now, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't really have a certain taste in music. Like, I mean, my go-to is alternative rock. I mean, you can tell by this podcast what we're doing.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's tons of hip hop I love. There's tons of jazz I love. I am in love with heavy metal, and like you have to. When it comes to music loving, like you can't say you love music if you only love one type of genre. You have to broaden your horizon of and your taste buds of what you want to hear, and obviously you can everyone has their opinion, and you can like something and you don't have to like something. That's completely fine. But as if you don't even give it a chance, that's where it has a sour taste in your mouth.
And I agree entirely. I remember actually, we knew each other before high school even. We did like a lot of like basketball camp
We did,
and
yeah,
stuff.
definitely.
Yeah, and I remember when we both pretty much only listened to heavy metal back then and it
I
was
do
Slipknot and
remember.
it was Korn. I remember that.
I do remember that. Didn't you? No, didn't you like play a bit in our band? Didn't you play bass or something?
I didn't play in your band, but I played Battle of the Bands with you guys.
Oh wow! What a did I remember one metal band where I was with, and I don't have much hair. I always shave my head,
Yeah.
but all the guitarists and especially the drummer, all of them had hair, but I was the only one who was headbanging. You know,
Yeah.
if I had hair, I'd be going crazy.
Well, it was good because you didn't get any hair in your face. I guess they
Yeah,
cared about not missing notes. I don't know.
yeah, that's true. It kind of just looked funny seeing a bald head going nuts. But anyways,
Just going crazy. Everyone's allowed to go crazy. But yeah, I just think that's worth noting because now, like you talk about jazz, you talk about this and that, and I remember that very moment when I myself said, okay, I can't just be listening to one thing this whole time, and I gave other things a chance, and it's exactly as you said. I've discovered that I like pretty much every single genre,
hmm
maybe some more than others, but yeah, this is exactly how it is. I still like some metal, but um, I just listen to everything now.
yeah, definitely.
One thing that I will use as a clever segue, I think, anyways, is the fact that your metal band in high school was named something appropriate to this podcast. What was it named?
Wow, I can't believe you remember that. It's called Lights Will Ignite Us. It was called Lights Will Ignite Us. The reason being is because one of my best friends at the time, we started the band and we were trying to figure out what the band name was called, and we both loved Coldplay, but we were in a heavy metal band. I don't know, weird. And then one of the songs for when it first came out during high school, no, X and Y came out during, I believe, grade 11 for us or grade 12 for us or any something like that. And then we both
Yeah.
loved Fix You. And one of the lyrics was, uh, uh, the light follow you or follow the light, something like that. Thank you. Lights will guide you home. That's the one.
Yes, thank you for that. I
Yeah.
forgot exactly what it was called too.
Lights will guide you home. I can't believe you forgot about that. Anyways, so we both love that song, and we were like, why don't we call ourselves Lights Will Ignite Us? And then so we did. It was great.
And it was a metal band with screaming, with heavy pounding and grooves.
Yeah, I was the drummer. I was the
Yep.
drummer.
I remember that. I remember I used to go to like the music class and would just like take up the drums, and I would follow afterwards because I used to like drumming, and I was just
Mm.
crap. I,
No, not at all, man. That's awesome.
no, I remember that though. I remember how big you guys were in high school, and I remember that a lot of people didn't even know where the name of that band came from. They were like, "Oh, Lights Are Will Ignite Us are such a good metal band, this and that," but that name just didn't even trigger for anybody as a Coldplay lyric, and I think that's kind of, I think, especially with older Coldplay, it's a testament to their kind of writing where it isn't just a fixated genre, which is possibly why somebody like you, who likes so many genres, likes a band like Coldplay so much, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And why it's fitting today, we're going to try something new. It's actually Jason's idea, so this is pretty much credited to him and this podcast as well, because my Mac is too old, I can't record anything, so this is all him recording this.
So basically, I beg to get on this podcast. That's what he's trying to say in a nice way.
No, no. But you are like the saving grace of this podcast at this point, because Sean usually records everything. No, but this was kind of his idea, and I hope it catches on because it's a pretty cool idea. We're actually going to go over the new Coldplay album, Ghost Stories, and review it, kind of have like a discussion about it, what's good, what's bad, instead of just giving like a plain written review. And I think this could be attributed to a lot of big releases, especially ones with without like a set opinion, because you can get like a lot of things out of it. So I hope this catches on. And let's go into it. First of all, go into a little bit about why you respect a band like Coldplay so much before we get into Ghost Stories.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny. The first time I listened to Coldplay, I remember I was in my grandmother's house. My cousin was the one who introduced me, and I was just, when CDs were big, I was going through her CD collection. I was like, I remember this one song. I remember this one band, and I'm going through her CD collection. And I finally saw the one Coldplay Parachutes. And then I was like, okay, great. I'm in my first step. So I put it in the CD. I'm going through every track. The first song I heard was Yellow. And that, blew my mind. And then once I started listening to more Parachutes and, once Rush of Blood, I was introduced to Rush of Blood to a head, and then X and Y came out, and then my fandom just kind of, went haywire. I've gone to at least 6 or 7 Coldplay shows in Toronto. I went to the recent one for Milo Zaloto, and my girlfriend and I, we went to the Toronto show. It was fantastic, and we had those glow sticks, glow wristbands. And then so right after that, we drove down to Montreal to go watch them again the day after or something. So we had 2 wristbands. We were just going bat crazy. And but no, I respect them just mainly because there's so much to it. Their songwriting abilities, not only just Chris and Johnny, but I mean you can hear a lot of Guy Berryman's opinion. You can hear a lot of Will Champion's opinion, and it's not as much as people say that it's Chris Martin's band. Yes, he is the face of it, and yes, he's the pretty boy, but it's everybody. Everybody has a say in it, and yeah, I mean I can go through a list of beautiful Coldplay songs, but I mean, we can do that later. We can focus on Ghost Stories. My love for Coldplay is pretty high.
Which is why you're the right person for this specific podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Oddly enough, my very first instance with Coldplay was similar to Lights Will Ignite as your band, where I remember being heavily into like heavy rock music, and I saw this advertisement in a newspaper where it just said "a rush of blood to the head," and I thought, "Oh, this must be heavy. Look at that album art. It's just, it looks like a decapitated head. Let's listen to it." And I put on Clocks, and I was just so confused. I was like, "What is this?" Right. So I might not be as big of a Coldplay fan as you are. or in general, but I do respect them because of their energy, because of their live performances as
Hmm.
well. I haven't had a chance to see them, but I know they're one of those bands that really goes at it, like the Flaming Lips or U2 or something to that
Hmm.
effect.
Hmm.
But
Credited to the production too as well.
oh,
I
absolutely.
just started to work at a production company, and then I we just did took apart all the lights for everything for Avicii. Avicii just came to town,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, and then all they were it was just pretty funny how there were just a few cables for audio because I mean he's a DJ, and then everything else was for lighting. So
Oh
and there
wow.
was an immense, and I'm talking about an immense amount of wires for lighting. But no, like you were saying, the live performance of Coldplay is definitely a reason why you should go watch them or you should respect them, because like they go all out. They it's just not a band on stage playing their music, kind of like their CD, right?
Right.
You pay hundreds of dollars to go see these guys, and there's a reason for it, really.
Absolutely. Um, but yeah, so because I thought they were like heavy music or whatever, that was like one of my first open doors to like something that wasn't just screaming or angst or anger. Um, but yeah, to go back to what you were saying, that's the one thing about Coldplay where even if they release like the worst song imaginable, which they haven't, but even if they were to just release the worst song, there's something different, which I think you can find as well now that you're a part of like this industry. There's something different between like a bad performer and somebody who's good, who's released something bad. Coldplay are a band that have just tried with every release. They try to make something different. I know they're not the only band to do so, but I think it's just a credible thing when they try for a sound and they strive to do something that isn't just old hat or let's make X and Y again or let's go for parachutes again because that's what made us big.
Hmm.
Um, so in regards to that, let's talk about Ghost Stories because this is probably their most sharply divided album yet critically.
Definitely.
First of all, like briefly, what did you think of it?
Um, I was, I guess I wasn't surprised, just just because of the way. I'm gonna go back to Milo Xyloto.
Yeah.
The first half of Milo Xyloto was definitely the poppy Coldplay, the danceable, the lights and everything. And then the second half comes by, and then you can just tell that they're branching off to something different. They're going into more acoustic, more production wise. And I guess, not saying I didn't like it. It was just different, and it took me aback. So once Ghost Stories came out, I was like, it's going to be kind of something similar to the end of Milo Xyloto, and it was. So I guess I wasn't too surprised. It was just a little. Uh, I miss parachutes. Let's just put it that way.
That's the thing. I guess it's a similar route to what Muse have done. It's a similar route to like what a lot of artists have done, where they're trying to tap into this new age kind of modern
Right.
sound, and it works for some others, and it works for doesn't work for everyone though.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So you weren't really blown away by Ghost Stories?
Not a rush of blood blown away, not XMI blown away, definitely not. But to for what it's worth, I mean the musicianship was fantastic. There are a few songs such as like I fell in love with Magic the first time I heard it. Their last song, which is actually I think it was a secret song or one of those hidden tracks,
Oh,
and the Float On.
yeah.
Uh, I'm sorry. Oh, Fly On. Thank you. Fly On, and that's a great song as well. So I mean, there's still a lot of Coldplay in it, but yeah, you're right. I wasn't too blown away.
But having said that, because I find myself a bit on the fence with this release as well, but I mean, 61 for Metacritic, threes out of fives,
Mm.
4.4 out of 10 for Pitchfork. Was it really that underwhelming to you, or?
Um, no, not really. Because okay, one, I'm biased.
Yeah.
Two, two, I just think you have to take it like what it's worth. Like you were saying, they don't want to do parachutes again. They don't want to do a rush of blood to the head again. It's kind of like, you know, putting out a movie that was fantastic and then doing a sequel. Like you don't
Yep.
wanna. You want to keep it a classic, which is completely fine. That's why, you have to go with the flow. And that's what I respect about Coldplay too. Like as much as they understand that not everyone's going to like their album. And that's okay to them. They don't care. They know that if we put out this album, yes, there are going to be fans that dislike it. Yes, they're going to criticize it and everything, but this is us and this is what we are now, and we could put out exactly what our fans want or what the critics want, and then they're going to criticize us anyways. So
Yeah.
I mean, I took it as what it was worth. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed parts of it. I didn't enjoy parts of it, but I think yeah, like 50-50, 3.5 out of 5, something
That's
like
not
that.
bad.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Like, I really didn't think it was that bad as people were saying. 3.5, maybe like a high 60 out of 100 is
Hmm.
where I would be going. But like a 4.4, I mean, that's a bit much. I think a lot of these harsh ratings are coming from a place that you were saying where maybe they don't want another rush of blood to the head, but maybe they want something as ambitious as it and not something that's kind of like tucked away and personal. And of course, this is going to be personal because this was written obviously when Gwyneth Paltrow and Chris Martin were having a tough time,
Right.
which
Exactly.
it's
Exactly.
not something that I've just revealed. It's something that everyone's known about in regards to this album, and partially why it was so hyped up for a lot of
Right.
people because it was that album. So they were expecting something perhaps maybe 10 times more depressing. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, it was pretty somber. So
It,
to make it a little bit even more depressing would be really depressing.
for sure, it was somber, but at the same time, it felt like it was hanging on to something and not going full Joy Division. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, if we're going to start talking about like the Gwyneth and Chris Martin, I mean, a lot of people has already written about how this album was kind of like a plea to Gwyneth, and you can tell that it's more him lyric wise. It's more him trying to hang on or trying to remember, and hopefully she comes back to him, and it's a lot of that storytelling. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Um, I don't know. I feel like a lot of this album was boosted because of that, and also because they've released stuff like Rush of Blood to the Head. And I feel like ever since that album and Parachutes, regardless of their live shows, regardless of their musicianship, they've always been very harshly judged because of that comparison. I
Hmm.
feel like nowadays you have two kinds of bands where you're either completely consistent and you don't face any scrutiny because of it, or you're a band like Coldplay where you release something really good and you release things that are also still pretty good, but
Hmm.
you're just going to be constantly judged. And I feel like a band like Radiohead won't be consistently judged, except for perhaps King of Limbs, which was their newest release,
Right.
and a lot of
Right.
people judged them for that because it wasn't nearly as good as the huge slew of albums which were masterpieces.
Right.
But
It's funny when you talk about Radiohead because I'm gonna get a lot of criticism for this, but I love the new Radiohead. I love it so much. I love their last one. I love Kings of Limbs, like you said. I love all that Radiohead. But when you're talking about how you take out or you release an album that's fantastic for your first time around, you come for a sequel, you come for a third one or something. I think I whatever it was called. I think it was called like the Florence effect, like Florence and the Machine,
oh wow.
when her first album was phenomenal, and then a lot of people thought her second one was nothing compared to it. So yeah, you could say Coldplay is kind of like the Florence effect.
I've never actually heard that before. And it's very fitting for our time. It's not like something from the past where it's like, oh, it's such and such effect. No, Florence, yeah, that's a good example because that's modern, that's fitting,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, no, I
we've
mean, I'm not
actually
taking
heard
it
it.
away from Florence and the Machine's second album, but I mean, compared to the first one, there is no comparison. Right.
Pretty much. I mean, you can say that about a lot of artists, actually. I can't think of any at the top of my head, and if they're listening, I don't want them to not listen anymore. But
Right.
um,
Right, exactly. Start
but
bashing bands out of nowhere.
yeah, oh, this band's
Yeah,
terrible, and
exactly.
this. No, but that's the thing about Coldplay. It's they didn't even go down in quality. They just went in like a different direction for their albums. And I remember reading some reviews where there were some people were even saying, "Well, Ghost Stories is bad, but it's not X and Y bad." And I was thinking, why was X and Y bad? I had
X
some
and Y
really good
was
stuff on it.
amazing.
That's some really good stuff on it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why people. Yeah, it's true. I don't know why people bash X and Y. I mean, it was you had the reason why is they released Speed of Sound and they're like, oh, this is clocks, and then they didn't give anything else a chance. That's what happened.
Yeah, maybe not. And then, but then you had like for the two following albums, you had very sharp criticisms as well, where some people loved Viva La Vida and some people didn't. More people didn't like Milo Xyloto. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, probably.
Or Milo Xyloto, however it's pronounced. Chris, you can tell me for listening to this. You're not.
Yeah.
Um, but some people, a lot of people didn't. But then you had some people who didn't like Coldplay at all, saying, "You know what? This is some really good stuff. I like this a lot."
Hmm.
That's the weird thing about Coldplay. And then you obviously have Ghost Stories, where, like I said, you have some people panning it, and then you have some people giving it a chance. Like AllMusic gave it a 4 out of 5. Rolling Stone gave it like a 3.5 out of 5, which isn't bad.
Hmm.
Some people are giving it a little bit more of a chance, like a B, B plus. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to judge. I mean, everybody has their own taste and their own opinions and everything like that, sometimes that's why I never really wanted to continue with a band or being an artist because the criticism, like nothing, no criticism is actually it is what would you say? It's reliable, like it's your opinion. I'm not gonna
yep,
judge on your opinion.
absolutely, I agree. Before I started writing for Live in Limbo, I actually had my own blog similar to what you had. And it was called Who Cares? And people thought it was because I didn't care about writing them, but really it was called that because in the end, well, my motto was, in the end, it's your opinion, so why should you listen to mine? Um, and that's a misconception a lot of people have with reviews and critiques and this and that, because being a critic myself, and I think you'll understand, hearing people going crazy saying, "Oh, critics don't know what they're talking about. I liked it. They're a bunch of jerks." Well, that's not the point. You're not supposed to like what a critic likes.
Right,
It's
exactly.
just like a bit of a. It's an opinion, so you know what you're going into, or you know what you might disagree with.
Yeah.
And I found myself disagreeing a little bit with this release. Like I said, it's not groundbreaking. Will it be on my list of like the best albums of the year? Probably not. But I'm not gonna lie, some of it really stuck with me.
Mm.
Like for example, I think my favorite song on here, I don't know if it struck anything with you, but one of my favorite songs on here was "True Love," and that just stuck with me for a while. Even after the album ended, for the first time hearing it, I said, "Well, okay, it was all right, but that song just had some sort of like an ambiance to it that
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
rang in my head for days." And that's the thing about this album. I think a lot of songs will trigger that with people, and it won't be the same song. It could be different ones.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I love True Love too. I think it's funny. I think someone was doing a review on or an interview with Chris Martin, and he said that True Love was his favorite as well
Oh, there
on
you
the
go.
album. Yeah, exactly. And I think after listening to it a few times, it's definitely um, his most emotional. You would say. I mean, like not only Chris Martin's actually, it's the whole band's most emotional song. It could be like the "Fix You" of this album,
Yeah.
because I mean everything is it's like a tearing apart. I'm like a tug of war, I'm trying to find the good out of everything, and then but you're still confused. And then I thought that part during the solo, during Johnny's solo, where he goes completely off tune and then goes back into tune. Like there's a story into that itself. Like I'm extremely torn, but I still remember everything, and I'm still in love, and it's true, and like it's like a story in itself, and I enjoy True Love a lot. Yeah.
Apparently, the whole album was a concept album, which I'm not gonna lie, I didn't actually find, because some concept albums are blatant and some of them are kind of not as obvious unless you look into it. I didn't really look into it. Did you look into the concept at all? Speaking of stories, or
I guess um, I'm gonna go back to going to school for this for the production in itself. Like there is a lot of time and effort put into picking which song goes next, like in an order. So you can't listen to ghost stories, or you can't listen to a lot of albums on shuffle, mainly because they put like a lot of sweat and tears of which one should come next and which one should go after or before, and the whole thing it flows, and I enjoyed it almost as much as Viva La Vida because Viva La Vida flowed very well too. This one, yeah, there was a concept of a story, and he was telling a story how, to me, it felt like he understands what he's lost, but he hoped that it comes back. Like that's what I kind of got out of it, out of the whole story.
absolutely. So what did you say your favorite tracks were? And you said Magic was one. You really
Magic.
liked the hidden tracks.
Yeah, definitely. I my favorite track, "Your True Love." Mine is "Another's Arms." "Another's Arms" was really good.
Right, that was actually one of my favorites as well. Was Another's Arms.
Yeah.
Um, what I said before, the fact that I think a lot of people will pick out something different from this is because while I guess people agree that it's not like their strongest effort or whatever, there isn't necessarily, well, I'll get into this in a second. Some people disagree with me, but there isn't necessarily like a worst song or something that bombs it for everything. I think a big issue with this album is that a lot of it sounds too uniform
Hmm.
and it just sounds really samey for a lot of the release. But at the same time, it's nice, but it's not something you can always rely on for it to be like a good album. You need a little bit more of diversity.
Definitely.
But that's why, because you can pick out different things from that, because you'll hear different things amongst this huge single layered kind of like coating of something, as opposed to like, well, this song is fantastic, but this song just bombs the whole album, right?
Right. Right.
Oh,
No,
sorry.
no, I know what you mean. Speaking of diversity of the album, I mean, talk about Midnight. Like the first release they had, that was absolutely nothing that they've ever released before,
Right.
right? I mean, it was just auto tune Chris Martin, and then it was produced by John Hopkins, the guy who helped them do Viva La Vida for what was that first Life in Technicolor?
Right.
Yeah, so he was the one who made this one, and I love John Hopkins. I love what he did on that album. So I was really excited, but it was so different. I didn't think I was gonna like it at first, but Midnight has grown on me very much
Midnight's
so.
pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember there was a huge thing about Coldplay's new sound, and I don't know why, because I don't know if they ever really had a sound, because they were always different. The only two albums which are kind of similar are Parachutes and A Rush of Blood. I mean, even those are very different in sound.
Hmm.
But yeah, everybody was going on about this new sound of Midnight, and then Magic came out, which was a little bit more easier to listen to, right? And
Yeah.
that was like the big radio hit. But in regards to this album, everything fits kind of well together. That's why I don't think this album's nearly as bad as some people are are taking credit away from it for.
Right.
It's because it does work as a complete unit, and yeah, maybe it's not like the greatest thing, but it still flows really well, as you were saying.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think True Love that goes straight into Midnight. That was fantastic. Another's Arms that goes straight into Oceans. Like, all of this fits in together quite nicely. Obviously, I do wish it's longer. It's since Brian Eno helped them out with Viva La Vida. They
Yeah.
had. Do you know about the Brian Eno rules?
Yeah, Brian Eno is one of my favorite producers.
Yeah,
He's somebody I want to interview one day. Um,
definitely. Yeah, I would
are you
listen to
talking
that.
about his flashcards or whatever, where you don't write the lyrics until you discover the sound and you just kind of throw words out there that just fit with the sound
I
and not
do,
the actual
yeah, I do
lyrics?
remember that one. No, his another one of his was never have an album that's longer than 42 minutes.
Right, that one too. Right.
And
Well, that's more fitting to what you were saying. I don't know why I didn't say that.
no, no worries. Yeah, definitely. And it's like, no, I want to have more, but it's true. Like you want to listen to this whole thing again and again and again, and you don't want to have, an hour and a half long because you're gonna have songs that you're gonna skip over. And the whole point of having to me, a whole point of having like, an album that's 42 minutes is long enough where you can enjoy it, but it's not long enough where you can skip songs.
Right. And I don't know if his rule applies to everything, but everything that he's touched, if it be like Talking Heads, or even though he didn't produce the work with David Bowie, his work with David Bowie,
Yeah.
and of course Roxy Music, it's different because his stuff is so sonically charged, and a lot of it is through layering and through just the ambience and the ringing of some notes and the actual, like I was saying, it's not about the words of the lyrics, but like just the perfect sounds that they create within a melody.
Hmm.
Um, but having said that, I don't know if you can apply that rule to every single album because there's a lot of albums which are like 2 hours long, which are fantastic. Like, I know I don't shut up about them, but the new Swans release, which is my album of the year so far, To Be
Nice.
Kind, is 2 hours. It's abrasive. It's jarring, but it's 2 hours and it works perfectly. And,
Right.
but having said that, because Coldplay's worked with Brian Eno, um, and Viva La Vida is possibly my favorite of theirs. I'm not gonna lie.
Hmm.
Was that the album that he worked on them with, or
Yeah,
was it
that
Milo?
was the one. That was the when he when Chris Martin. I remember watching interviews. He slyly and was embarrassed to ask Brian, if he can work with them. And then that's when he was like, yeah, for sure, but you have to follow these rules. And that's what Viva La Vida came out.
Oh, maybe that's why I like it. I didn't even
Yeah,
know it.
yeah, exactly.
That's a great album. Violet Hill's amazing. And that was the typical answer. But nonetheless, because of that, obviously, when you get these rules from such a masterful producer, you're not going to want to shy away from them because it's helped you before. Why wouldn't it help you again, right?
Right, right. I don't know if they actually helped out on this one. I mean, like you said, he actually, gave him the rules and then gave him the influence. But looking at the credits, it doesn't seem like he was a part of it. I
Of
don't, of Ghost
Viva La
Stories,
Vida or
of Ghost
of Ghost
Stories.
Stories.
Yeah.
No, I'm trying to look here because I remember hearing that Madeon, who's worked with Lady Gaga, was a factor in shaping this album, but I'm not seeing his name anywhere here.
Right. He has. I know. Their latest producer. I think his name is Rick Simpson.
Yeah,
He was the one who produced this album, and then you have co-producers like Avicii, who helped with the Sky Full of Stars,
right.
and then I think Timberland actually helped out with Another's Arms. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, there's not much Brian Eno, but I mean, there's still the Brian Eno effect.
Well, speaking of Rick Simpson, as you were saying, um, I'm looking at Wikipedia because I'm very unprofessional. He's worked with Jay
Oh, it's
Z,
professional.
PJ Harvey, where you can hear a little bit of Songs of the City, Songs of the Sea here. But most importantly, Portishead, which you can hear a lot of on this album, actually. A lot of like the very, um, like the drums don't have like a big kick to them, but they
No,
kind of
definitely
just
not.
like they're very smooth sounding. It's a very smooth sounding production and very chilled, which
Hmm.
actually funnels a lot on here. Which there you go. That makes sense.
Yeah. I guess the
Sorry.
only thing about like yeah, you're talking about the drums. As a drummer, I'm obviously going to try to find out the beats, the backbeats, and the rhythms, and what timing it is.
Yeah.
I guess that was one thing I was a little taken aback because I miss the sound of the real drum kit. I miss the acoustics, the ambience, the room tone, and I miss Will. And out of this album, I couldn't. I'm sure he played, and like, I'm sure he played all the beats for it, but you couldn't hear his character as much as the other albums on this one.
Yeah, you raise a good point because again, to compare them with Radiohead, not in quality or anything, but just because they're a good example. Radiohead obviously did a similar thing with Kid A, where they ditched a lot of actual drumming, but it sounded like it was for a good purpose. Where okay, a lot of this couldn't be replicated by acoustic drums,
Right.
but you have a good point here because a lot of this could have sounded really jazzy and just really a lot more layered if I had like a real cymbal and had like a real like snare sound,
Right.
especially like if it's like a soft one or full of no pun intended ghost notes.
Right.
You could have
Right.
done a
That's true.
lot with the drumming here actually, and yeah, like I said, you got a really good point. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. I mean, the one song that had most of you can tell that he's probably playing on a drum pad. It was Magic,
Yeah.
and then that's why when I heard Midnight first, I was like, yeah, this is good, but there's no band. There's I can't hear Guy, I can't hear Johnny, I can't hear Will, but I still liked it. But when it came to Magic, I could hear everybody. I
Yeah.
could kind of point everybody out, and I guess that's what I missed about Coldplay. The whole band aspect, the whole brotherly, that's what I love about them mostly, and I'm gonna continue to love them too in whatever direction they're going for. But I do definitely miss that heavy room and the acoustics of when Will hits, because Will hits pretty hard. For example, one of my favorite songs is "In My Place" from A Rush About to the Head.
Right.
The first note is a hi-hat and a bass kick. And it blows in your speakers, and I miss that so much, and you don't really get that from Ghost Stories, which is fine. But yeah, I miss it a little bit.
Specific notes. I knew you were the right guy for this. That's crazy. Actually, I'm not gonna lie. What song was it on X and Y? I can't remember the song name. I'll look it up right now while I'm talking about this. But I remember there was this one part where I actually noticed his drumming, and I thought, "Damn, this guy's actually a lot heavier hitting than I understood before." Let's see, what song was it?
I'm gonna go on a limb and say it was Low.
I don't know if it might have been Square One. I think it was Square One.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
That's the one with the very epic opening, right?
Yes.
I haven't heard this in a while. I think it was Square One where I just listened to it, and the hardest part, which I think is actually one of my favorite Coldplay songs.
Right. You should listen when you get a chance to listen to Low. Low is one of my favorite songs. I want to at least I hope I'm right. 2/3 of the way through, they changed the whole dynamic of the song,
Right.
into a different timing, I believe. And at first, it's just kind of I think the 1, 2, and 3 on the bass kick, and then or 2, 3, and 4, and then Guy is just playing kind of grooving with Will, and then out of nowhere on the 2:30 mark, they change dramatically, and it's beautiful. That whole dramatic change is so good, and I wish we could play it, just that little changeover. I wish we could play it.
You can ask them and put it in and see.
Yeah,
Just see how it is.
we'll
I actually owned X and Y. I don't know why this song isn't coming to my mind right now, but I'll give it a listen after this, and I'll message you and say, "Oh yeah, I remember this song."
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, having said that, as I was saying before, with specific songs and ghost stories, which we felt was uniform, you have some people picking it apart. Speaking of X and Y, actually, here's a quote from Pitchfork, who don't take it the wrong way. I do like Pitchfork, but a lot of people see it as a bad thing, as pretentious. I don't know. But here's a quote from Pitchfork, which I don't know if I entirely agree with. "Ink is the album's most indefensible moment, musically and lyrically, and the song handily snatches the title of worst Coldplay song from X and Y's stinker What If." That's pretty harsh. It's
pretty harsh. Well, okay, I'm gonna go off on a limb and say that "Ink" is my most least favorite song on the album. It's because I'm trying to look for the Coldplay I love, and especially Chris's lyrical genius. And there really wasn't much of that. And obviously, there's going to be people who are like, "Well, it's very, it's like a poem." My girlfriend's giving me the cut eye right now because she loves that song.
Sorry.
But, yeah, I know. and yeah, okay. She made a good point. Chris has a tattoo of a G on his wrist, something like that, and Gwyneth has a tattoo of a C on her hip or something like that. So there's significance of the song. It's just I didn't enjoy it too much, mainly because of the lyrics and how they flow together, and but the problem is it sounds like musically, it sounds like they're having the most fun, which is great. But the lyrics just kind of downplays it, and I don't know if it I can put those two together.
No, I understand. There's a good contrast, and there's also a disappointing contrast. And actually, what you were saying was pretty much spot on with what Pitchfork was saying. That it was lyrically a big nosedive for Coldplay.
And I can't disagree with that.
Well, there you go then. So you agree with Coldplay then, or with
Pitchfork.
with Pitchfork then? My bad.
Yeah.
So having said that, are there any other noticeably like disappointing moments on the album, or was that pretty much like the only thing that really got you off guard?
That will the one song that I really enjoy the fly on the hidden track. As much as I love that song, I mean the lyrics are about birds, a flock of birds, flying away and whatnot, and it's so beautiful when Guy comes in, especially when he comes in with his bass notes, and he plays along with the melody of Chris, and it just works so well together. But I think after the two verses and the chorus, I don't know who decided to do it, but you could hear almost like chirping noises of birds. Do you remember that?
I vaguely actually. I don't know. I haven't noticed it that much.
I don't know if it's Johnny trying to do something on his guitar, or it could be just the production. But I think they put birds because it's about flying away. Well, it's not technically about flying away, but I mean, they put that effect in it, and it ruined the song for me. As much as I love that song, once that bird chirping starts to come in, I kind of change it.
Damn.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't notice it that much. Maybe because I haven't listened to the bonus tracks that often. I just go for like the standard 42-minute album.
Right. No, I love that track, but once that, yeah, it was just in my head, I start to think, it was like, who decided to put that in there?
I think a big portion of why this album kind of falls flat, which I don't know if it is the answer for your question as to who put the chirping in there, but I think a big portion of why this album kind of falls flat is a lot of it surrounds Chris Martin, and that goes with the band kind of missing. That goes with a lot of Chris Martin's. Well, the lyrics before have been good, but I guess perhaps at this time of his life, perhaps he's not being able to channel it that well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree, and I hope that doesn't affect the live performances. The reason why I'm saying that is because you could tell the difference, especially during the different tours. For example, I started watching them live during X and Y. And during their X and Y days, all they wanted to wear was black. I mean, that could be the PR's fault, but I mean, all they wanted to wear was black. And I was like, guys, your music is very colorful. You got to start, showing some of that color. And you could tell that the dynamic wasn't there at first during X and Y, and it could be band related, or I don't know what it was, and then out came Viva La Vida, and then it was just graffiti color, and it was great. And then out came Milo Xyloto, and then they got color in the audience, and it was fantastic. So I'm intrigued to watch the Ghost Story tours, because what are they going to do now? Like it's very somber. How are you going to have a stage where it's white and blue and black, and then play Charlie Brown? It's going to be, I'm intrigued. I'm hoping that it doesn't affect it because of how, intense you would say Ghost Story is. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to buy a ticket. No question, but we'll see.
You can let us know how it goes, unless I or myself or somebody else from the site decides to review it. That came out really badly. If somebody else from the site decides to review it, then yeah, we'll let everybody know how it goes. But no, that's another good point, because as we were saying, that's definitely a strong suit where maybe you didn't like X and Y, maybe you didn't like Milo Xyloto, but the live shows are where it's at, where everything just comes together regardless. But with this, obviously, they're not gonna have like a colorful set and then say, okay, let's sit down on the piano and do this.
Hmm.
Or they're not gonna go the complete reversal where, okay, let's do these somber songs. And hey, guys, remember Parachutes? Remember some really happy songs on that? Let's do those while we're dressed in like suits or
Yeah,
whatever. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, exactly. I mean, I've yet to see some live performances on YouTube. I'm really excited to watch them. But I mean, I guess what I do, well, I guess I should tell you this now. Whenever they come out with an album, especially if it's something I am extremely excited for, such as Coldplay, I don't listen. I try to not listen to anything until the album comes out, especially when they were streaming Ghost Stories online a week beforehand. I was like, nope, nope, I cannot listen to it. I have to listen to it when it comes out. And it's kind of the same thing with live too, because they tend to, play their music live, and hopefully they get a good repertoire with that. So I've yet to watch any of the live performances yet for Ghost Stories. So I guess we'll see. What I've seen so far, it's been pretty cool. So.
Well, that's good. I was going to ask how you actually haven't seen anything because I wasn't sure if they were touring or not. But they're touring so shortly after everything with Gwyneth happened, eh?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I don't know. They usually it's just so odd that Chris Martin would release something like this so personal, because whenever he talks about his personal life with Gwyneth, he shuts down. You can tell by his interviews that he just doesn't want to talk about it. And credit to him, that's extremely hard to do, especially when you're in the spotlight. So once in the interviews when he doesn't want to talk about it, and then all of a sudden he comes out with this, ghost stories about his life. It's weird.
Yeah, maybe that's like his only way of releasing it because you can't just like not talk about this kind of thing ever because some people have self-destructed because of that kind of mentality, like Kanye West, for instance, where he's become actually vicious with the press because of just trying to hide from him for so long. And it's not the artist's fault, obviously, because the press. There's a difference between what we do, where we interview and we try to get to know people as they are people, and kind of like what paparazzi do, where they try and pry open an artist's life as if they were in the wild, like a squirrel in a tree or something, right?
Right, right.
And of course, I don't blame the artist for lashing out or anything. But having said that, somebody like Chris Martin, who isn't necessarily like a vicious person, I don't know him personally. I have no idea, but I don't think he's a violent person. So
Yeah.
maybe this is like his only way of releasing it without like self imploding. So I
That's true.
guess the answer is ghost stories.
I mean, everyone's gone through heartbreaks before, right? I mean, if you are good at what you do and you want to, show your love for somebody still, I'd probably do the same thing.
And it's not uncommon musically to have this kind of album. Like Joni Mitchell's masterpiece Blue was over a similar situation. And you have Bob Dylan's Blood on the Tracks, which I don't know if it's about a breakup, but it's about hardships as well. You
Right.
have just a lot of musicians doing this kind of route. And a lot of people even said that Jesus, Kanye West's album, a lot of it was based on that as well. I'm not really sure what his problems were because he seems to be having a pretty good right now. But,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I
you're
see
right.
more of that with My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, where he was questioning his own ego. But it's not uncommon for an artist to have done this. So it's not like Chris Martin, what are you doing, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, when you listen to all the other stuff, you can listen to Milo, you listen to X and Y or Viva, like it wasn't as easy as it was to know the story as it is to Ghost Stories. What I mean by is like you know what's going on in Ghost Stories. You know it's heartache. You know you feel bad for the dude. But when you listen to everything else, all the other albums, you're like, yeah, this is great. And then you think, wait, what are you talking about? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, having said that, maybe it's not always an artist's like goal or accomplishment to try and just have the best album of all time, topping Time magazine, Rolling Stone magazine, or anything. Maybe it's not always their objective. But having said that, do you think that Ghost Stories perhaps is just Chris Martin's way of getting rid of all of this, releasing this no matter what the ratings were, whatever, and then perhaps just getting back to what Coldplay is afterwards?
Yeah. Well, I would hope so. I mean, not saying I wouldn't want like a Ghost Story too, but I do think that he is letting it all go, and then once he lets it all go, he's gonna come back with something strong. Um, I mean, we were all surprised. All the Coldplay fans. I mean, we were all surprised that they came out with something so soon. I mean, yeah, Milo was 2 years ago, and that's kind of the way artists work. 2 years later, they come up with something new.
Right.
But for some odd reason, he kind of hinted more so than all the other ones that this is going to be, well, their final one. And as a Coldplay fan, you're like, no, we want more from you, obviously. And then this came out of nowhere. So hopefully, once this is out, once the tour is good and gone, they start getting more. They start writing more. I mean, that's everybody's fan's dream, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much. So, having said that, this isn't some significant part of Coldplay's discography, even though it marks a significant time in Chris Martin's life, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, six albums is a lot of albums already. But when it comes to your favorite artists, you never want them to stop. I mean, I'm sure U2 fans when they first came out, as much as maybe their last album wasn't that good, you don't care. You want more from them. And I think I don't know Coldplay as well. I mean, I wish I did, but this is their livelihood.
Yeah.
Like they're gonna continue writing music because that's what they do best. And no matter what, obviously, no matter what goes on, they're gonna keep doing it and show it through their music. And that's what I think. That's what Ghost Story is. Exactly what they're going through right now. Not only Chris Martin, but the whole band too. Because once you see your brother go down, you kind of want to either pick him back up or tell him that he's not alone.
That's a good point, actually, because, like we were saying, the band kind of steps back on this album a lot, and
Yeah.
they compliment Chris Martin as opposed to complimenting the band as a whole. But that's a good point as to why perhaps this happened, and it wasn't Chris Martin going in there saying, "This is my story, I want this." Perhaps it was their own decision.
Yeah, it's true. Exactly. I mean, I remember reading and watching a few things about Milo. Uh, Chris Martin, the only thing he kept on saying about this album was, "This is Johnny's time. This was all him and all those riffs." And you can tell all the riffs from Milo were all guitar based and
Yeah.
solo based, and you can just tell that it's a band's decision. So you're right. I mean, uh, once you see somebody so close to you go through something like this, I mean, you can't help but go behind him.
That's a good point. But going back to what you were saying before about consistency, and you don't want albums to stop being delivered by bands or whatever, a lot of people have a complex where because the Beatles broke up, their album or like their discography rather was pretty much almost pitch perfect because you had so many great albums. You had Sgt. Pepper's, you had Rubber Soul, you had Revolver, you had the White Album. You had so many good albums. Yeah, they had like one or two albums which were great, but didn't match that peak. But at the same time, they just had so many albums, but that by the time they broke up, they didn't have a chance to release bad albums. Like Rolling Stones released some bad albums. Like David Bowie, after so many classics, released some
Right,
bad albums in the 80s. You know what I mean?
right,
So, having said that, with a band like Coldplay, where obviously the the time it takes to release these albums isn't nearly as quick. Like you don't have an album each year. Um, Why do you think some people still expect this kind of perfection nowadays, and the fact that they should just stop releasing albums, especially now that they're not releasing them nearly as often? Why do you think people still have this mentality?
I think it's because of how we live by like entertainment aspect. I mean, everyone has a really short attention span nowadays, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Like once an album comes out, a week later, you're done talking about it.
yeah,
Right? I mean, right now it's a week later. I'm sure I'm going to listen to it once or twice and then be like, okay, what's the next one? And that's everybody. Like everyone expects something new all the time, and that's just how we live nowadays. I mean, it's sad, and that's why when you're saying people come out with bad albums, it's because of that pressure to get that album to keep relevant. you
Yeah,
know? And that's also kind of why I respect Coldplay too, because a lot of people would say, yeah, they're selling out and everything like that. But I mean, they're trying to keep relevant. At the same time, they're trying to play what they feel and play what's going on in their lives. At the same time, they're going on tour. At the same time, like there's a lot to it. I'm sure of it. While us audience members have a short attention span, you know.
absolutely. And is that's you were saying before with the album streaming. It's not even just the fact that it would ruin the album before it's out for you. It's also the fact that, as you said, people want something to release and then they're done talking about it. Like if you look at a website like hasaleak.com where you can see what albums leak
Right.
around the time that they get like a massive amount of attention because they've leaked.
Yeah.
Um, you'll see like leading up to the album, it's oh I wish Iggy Azalea's album would drop, or oh I wish Linkin Park's new album would drop. All this fighting and bickering. Oh, Lana Del Rey's album's gonna be crap. Oh no, it's gonna be amazing. And then by the time it actually drops, oh it's leaked. Oh it's leaked. That's good. Let's listen to it.
Yeah.
And you won't see a comment afterwards. That's
Right.
it. It's done. The build up to it's already finished. And by the time the album drops, oh this album got a 4 out of 5. This album got like a 2 out of 10 or whatever. People
Yeah.
already said, oh yeah, we knew that.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, you had all these reviews prior to the drop date of the release, and then you have like fans like me who wait for the release. Like there's a reason why they release it on a certain date, you know, and then everybody's reviewing it, I'm not saying. I mean, obviously there's a reason why they released it beforehand, so they can have a longer, I guess, hype. Right, once you release it. Streaming online, people are talking about it, and then once people are talking about it, people want to buy it, and then automatically you already have another week of people
Yeah.
talking about it. Like I'm sure there's a strategy when it comes to this, but I'm just I guess I'm just old school. Like back in the day when you knew a date that was coming by and you knew when it was going to come out and you didn't want to listen to anything and you wanted to listen to it the first time. I mean, you remember the first time you listened to, you know, Radiohead's Creep or something. Like
Right.
it blew your mind, right? And the first time I listened to, I don't know, Coldplay's Viva La Vida's Strawberry Swing. Like once I heard that, it absolutely blew my mind, and I texted everybody. It was like, you have to listen to this, and uh, uh, I'm so excited for you to listen to it for the first time and everything like that. Like, it's kind of like a dying art where you listen to it for your first time and you won't forget about it. All those first times are kind of like are disappearing, you know?
Yeah, because you have a lot of people who are just sitting at their computer. Oh, this thing's leaked. Let's download it while I'm doing my studying for my physics exam. This and that. Oh, let's
Right,
put it
exactly.
on.
I mean, I'm not gonna say I haven't, you know, downloaded or watched the leaks or anything like that. But I mean, you when a things that you love like Coldplay, you have to keep it consistent for yourself. You want to have those albums or those movies that you don't want to watch previews because you want to be surprised. You want to
Yeah.
have that, you know, element of falling in love for the first time again, you know, things like that. And Coldplay, it's happened to me with Coldplay so many times that I wouldn't be surprised if it happened again for their next album or their next album. And I have definitely other bands that I wait for, you
Yeah.
know, that I do the same thing for.
No, absolutely. Before we wrap things up, I just this interests me a little bit because you have an album, like I talked about them before, Swans' new album, which leaked over 2 months before the album even came out.
Wow.
And people are still buying it. Like, okay, yes, I've downloaded music, this and that, but I'm like you, I purchase a lot of music, and the very first day it kind of dropped, I bought it. So
Yeah.
I have that. I have St. Vincent's self-titled on CD and vinyl, so that's 2 copies.
Yeah.
And because I listen to music the same way you do. Like I'll go onto my bed, I won't have anything else. I'll turn on my turntable, put on the vinyl, and just listen to it. And that's something that a lot of people don't do anymore. And I think this heavily affects Ghost Stories because I brought up Swans because their album was so sonically engaging and just so so alive and just so extreme that you couldn't help but feel like you were being bombarded by a lot of noise for 2 hours. Now you have an album like Ghost Stories, which leaked, what was it, like a week or two before it got released?
Yeah, I think a week before.
Right. So it wasn't even 2 months. And you have a lot of people praising New Swans, going, "Oh, this is fantastic, this and that." And while I do think it is a much better album, I think a lot of what people find bad about Ghost Stories is the fact that it released and like before it was supposed to release, and it was somber
Hmm.
and it was quiet, and because of that, because it wasn't the official day and it got it early, and people were on the computers and people were just, "Oh, it's a new Coldplay. Let me put this on while I vacuum." You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that's how people treat leaks for the most part, or a lot of albums. Period. Now, because of their attention spans, and they treat a lot as like background noise as opposed to actual, like an actual piece. So because of that, because it would just fade into whatever they were doing, um, I don't know. I can't speak for everybody, and I don't think I'm a better authority than most people, but I feel like that's a lot of what people found detrimental about Ghost Stories.
Yeah, no, you have definitely a good point. I mean, um, once once you listen to it the first time, there's only one first impression you're ever gonna get. You know, if you listen to it on your computer, I'm not saying like, you know, listen to it on, you know, really bad speakers or anything like that, or your computer speakers, and you're gonna get the whole aspect of it, because you're not you if you love music and if you love a band, you have to give them that opportunity for you to listen to it on, you know, actually good speakers, or when they want to release it, or give them a chance and not, you know, do like we do. We sit down and we literally just listen,
Yeah.
and that in itself is already hard for a lot of people, and it's hard for me too. You know, there's a lot of music where I kind of just listen to in the background. I mean, some people, a lot of people have been messaging me to, you know, put their music on my blog, and I'm like, yeah, for sure. And then I kind of listen to it, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'm gonna do something else while I'm listening to it,
Yeah.
and that's not fair, and I understand. But you have to, you know, kind of pick your poison. If you love a band, then show them, and like show it to yourself that you still love them. And or if you love anything you do, you got you can't half-ass it.
Right.
You know what I mean. And that's why I encourage people definitely share your music online. Obviously, stream it, whatever you want to do. Let other people listen to it. Obviously, of course, but don't forget that, you know, there's only one time where you can hear music for the first time, you
Right.
know. And if you love a band like I do with Coldplay, like give yourself a chance to just listen to it. And I think Ghost Story will either surprise people a lot, or you might love it. And if you love it, even it's even better. I'll see you at the show.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Because, well, this is Toronto based, so you might very well see Jason at the show,
Yeah,
or
no, seriously.
myself, or somebody else from Live in Limbo. Um, yeah, that's the thing. Like sometimes albums can be put on in the background. You'll still notice so many good things, where you'll be diving in and be like, "Man, this riff is fantastic." But I don't think Ghost Stories is that kind of an album, and I think that's its biggest problem: the fact that perhaps people just didn't give it as fully big of a chance as they should have.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Definitely. I mean, you got to give it a chance. I mean, I gave it I definitely gave it my 2 cents, and there are things I love and things I don't, but that's my opinion. But at least I gave it a chance. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's not an album that's going to shine through while you're doing your homework or while you're doing chores.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're gonna fall. I assure you, you're gonna fall asleep to it if you're gonna be doing your homework.
Maybe, and that might, depending on your opinion, that might testament like work as a testament to like how good or bad it is. The fact
Yeah,
that it won't
that's true. That's true. I
snag
actually
you.
have a playlist on my iTunes called it's called "Shit I Sleep To." You
Oh
know,
well, there you go.
and the whole point of it is listen to things I like so I can sleep to it. You know,
Oh,
you know
what
what I
kind of
mean?
stuff's on it?
Actually, let me show you.
Alrighty,
Give me a second,
no worries.
because I
We'll
need
end
some.
off with this nice recommendation.
Sure, sure. I got some Let's Buy Happiness. I got James Blake, Nolan Well. I got
James Blake.
yeah, Broken Bells. I got some Jason Mraz, and I got some Coldplay on there. And yeah, it's just I think I some. Oh yeah, I can't pronounce his last name. Ray Lamont Lamontagne. Yeah, something like that. Anyways, yeah, that's like shit I sleep to, and it's fantastic.
Well, there you go. That's a good list.
Yeah,
So, final rating of Ghost Stories, you said about like a 3.5, or it's like, yeah, 3.5 out of 5, which is about like a 7 out of 10.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Again, you remember I'm biased. I'll give it a 5 out of 5 if I could, but I got to be honest.
Well, no, that's the thing. You've got to be honest. Yeah, I'd give it maybe like a 65 out of 100.
Yeah, yeah.
It isn't bad. It's not like a 4.4. That's a bit extreme, Pitchfork.
No,
Sorry.
it's not. It's not that. It's not that bad. It's that you gotta. That's those are the people who didn't give it a chance.
Maybe, I don't know. Pitchfork's pretty credible. I think they're just very angry about some artists and they'll slam them a bit harder. So I don't know.
Yeah, good point.
All right. Having said that, this went really well. And for future endeavors, where can our listeners find you?
Oh, well, I am on Twitter. You can find me at jleung JAYLEUNG 20. You can find me on Twitter there. I'm also doing this blog called New Music for the Win. It used to be called Music or New Music Takes the Crazy Away, but I thought that was a little bit too long, so I thought New Music was for the Win was pretty good. And you can find me on Blogspot. I think that's what it's called. No, sorry. You can find me. Just search for that. Just search for that. You'll be fine.
There you go. And you can find myself at Andreas Babs. This is obviously live in Limbo. You can follow the rest of the podcast. Type in hashtag Capsule, hashtag live in Limbo to join in on the conversation. And that's it for this podcast. So thank you very much, Jason, for this opportunity.
Yeah, man. Thank you again. Hopefully we can do this soon.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully we can do this kind of thing in the future where we just sit down and review something as opposed to just doing news or just interviewing people. We can sit down and just see why we enjoy or not enjoy a specific thing, but see why we like music or films as a whole.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks.